Hey guys, and welcome back to the Elevate HD podcast. My name is Holly Davidge. I am your host as always. I am an online physique coach, and I am here to talk to you about all things physique development, muscle gain, fat loss, and just bringing your best physique yet. Now, it has been a while since I have done an episode. The one that I just released a couple of weeks ago was one I recorded with Mel, and that was back in October after we came back from Dubai. So it's been a couple of months, and I feel that every single podcaster goes through a bit of a lull or a bit of a phase where they take a break, because I do aim to release these podcasts on a weekly basis, but you have no idea how much work a podcast takes to put together until you do one yourself. Like, it's one thing to record it, but then it's the editing, and then it's doing the graphics, and then it's doing the captions, and then it's uploading it all, doing all the relevant hashtags, doing all the cover photos, everything like that. It does take a lot of time. And for those of you who don't know, I do have a full-time job on top of coaching as well. So I am a scientist. So I work in clinical trials as a normal human. And then in my spare time, what I love to do is coach individuals to be their best selves, both physically and mentally. And along with that comes everything else. Like, as Paul Standell often says, like, coaching is not really just about coaching anymore. If you want to be a coach, you need to be a content creator as well. So that's all about Instagram content, TikTok if you do it, YouTube, podcasting, everything like that is so important if you want to build your business. So I am very much aware of that, and I don't want to neglect it because it is my baby. I launched Elevate HD in 2021, so nearly 3 years ago now, which is absolutely crazy. And I've loved it. I've had so many amazing guests along the way, and the podcast has kind of evolved over the years as well. I started it as a primarily information-based educational podcast, and I was only getting on educators and people talking about physique enhancement, physique development. And then as it grew and as it developed, I realized that people are very interested in personalities, and they're not just interested in what that educator has to say. They're interested in how that educator got to where they were. So, for example, people like Joe Jeffrey, people like John Jewett, people like Eric Helms, all these people that came onto my show at the beginning, which I'm super grateful for, they mainly spoke about the topic that they were studying. So whether that's training, whether that's nutrition, whether that's PEDs, anything like that. And I realized along the way that people are interested in people, and many of the podcasts and most of the podcasts I do listen to are more to do with the person behind the information and the knowledge. So how did that person come to be how they are? What's their life like? What's their family like? How did they grow up? How did they get into the industry? How did they become successful? And people want to know this because people want to be successful as well, and they want to learn from successful people. Like, success leaves clues, as the phrase often goes. So I have kind of transitioned it more to a conversational based podcast more than anything, which I really enjoy. And I try and sprinkle some solo ones along the way if I can, because I want you guys to get to know me as I get to know you. And I think that's really important to develop our relationship further, so that you can learn more about the girl behind the bikini or the girl behind the knowledge and the education she puts out on Instagram, because I am just a human. I have my doubts, I have my flaws, I have my own issues as well as anyone else. So I think it's important to share that, because I do think a lot of people on Instagram portray this like picture perfect life, especially certain influencers and coaches. You go onto their page and it makes you feel bad about yourself. And that's never my intention. My goal is always that someone comes onto my page and says, God, this girl is so relatable. She has the same issues as me. She has the same struggles as me. I completely understand where she's coming from because I face it too. And I can look up to her because she's been through the same thing. I don't want to be seen as perfect. I don't want to be seen as flawless, because I'm absolutely not. And my friends will tell you that. So I do think that's really important to keep this line of communication open. And that's why I really like podcasts, because they are a space for more conversation. You can go into more detail about things. With reels, you get 60 to 90 seconds of grabbing someone's attention. There's not much you can really say there. But when you have a podcast, you can talk to up to an hour and just share your thoughts, divulge information, opinions, like thought processes, all those kind of things. And I think you really get to know someone more from podcasts. And I find the podcasts I do listen to are when people really open up and they really share their inner workings and their secrets and their doubts and their self-esteem issues. And not that I want people to have self-esteem issues, absolutely not, but you know what I mean. I think it's just a nice avenue to explore for people, to see what people are really like on the inside. So I thought I would use this episode to give you a bit of an update on myself, tell you what my plans are moving forward, where I've been, what I've been doing, what I want to do. So following on from Dubai, obviously we had October, November, December was quite a busy period for me. And I would say the last half of last year, I went through a bit of an epiphany moment, if you will. I wouldn't say it was as much of a crisis or an identity crisis as more as bringing everything into question. And the reason why I brought things into question is because I turned the grand old age of 30 years old on the 29th of December, a couple of weeks ago. And the whole last half of last year, I was 29 and I was eagerly anticipating the upcoming event of being 30 years old. And it did make me put a lot of things into question, specifically bodybuilding and my life as a competitor. So I've been training properly, I would say, since I was 24. So that would have been 2017. I did my first prep in 2018. So that means I've been now officially competing for 6 years, which is quite a long time. And I'm very aware that there are people that have been in the scene longer than that. I was actually at a posing seminar last weekend with Marnie and Rocket Fit as part of Compact. And I met a girl there. Her name is Kirsty, IFBB Pro. Shout out Kirsty. She's 33 and she said it took her 10 years to get her pro card. So that really stuck with me because I know that this is a tangent, but I am very susceptible to comparison. What I've done in my 6 years versus what other people have done in their years. And to hear someone say, look, it took me 10 years to get there, but I got there is very nice to know. And it's very reassuring that everyone is on their own timelines. You cannot compare your rate of success with someone else's, your rate of progression with someone else's, because we're all on the same timelines. And that made me think, like, what if she had tried for 9 years to get a pro card and then didn't get it and gave up? And she would have thought, God, I never got a pro card. I never would have got it because I tried for 9 years. But on the 10th year, she got it. I just think that's such an amazing success story. But yeah, so it has brought into question for me. I've been competing for 6 years. I've done 3 seasons. I've done 12 shows. I've done pretty much all the federations. And I was kind of thinking to myself, right, what is my next step here? Am I still in the circuit? Do I still want to compete? Do I still have goals left in the competing industry, or am I finished? Because for me, because I've done all the federations, the only logical next step for me would be, well, do I want to get a pro card or not? Is that my goal? Is that something that means a lot to me? And secondly, is that a realistic goal for me? And I was talking to Mel about this yesterday. There's a fine line between being realistic and pessimistic, because she was saying that there's a difference between being cocky and manifesting something. And I absolutely agree. Like, there's no point in being, ignorant and above yourself saying, I'm going to get a pro card no matter what, blah, blah, blah. But there is a case for saying, I want to get this pro card. I'm going to do everything in my power to get this pro card. I'm going to leave no stone unturned so that the odds are in my favor and I've done everything I have to do, and everything else is up to the universe to decide. So I think there is a difference with that. So for me, it's like, number one, do I want to get a pro card, or is that a goal of mine that's worth chasing? And number two, is that a realistic goal for me that I could potentially achieve? Maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but maybe further down the line. And then also, what implications would that goal have for me in terms of my future? And coming into my 30th year of life, I think it's technically my 31st year of life when you're 30. And the 30th decade, I suppose. What are my life aspirations? My years in my 20s were very much devoted to my career, were very much devoted to bodybuilding, to coaching, to physique development, to doing everything I need to do there. But obviously I do want to settle down eventually. I do want to have a life with someone. I do want to have a future where I can settle down and have a house, and who knows if I want to have kids or not, I don't know yet, but maybe have kids and have that kind of life for myself. So what timeline would that be? And like, we know as females, we cannot have children all our life. There's a finite amount of time you can have that. So by me committing to competing further, that's me eating into the availability I have to have children and start a family. So there's so many considerations there. And I feel like it's very difficult when you are coming that age. I felt when I was 24, I didn't have a care in the world because I didn't have any responsibilities and I didn't have that biological clock ticking in my head, but that very much is ticking now. So I do need to consider that. Obviously, whether the goal is worth chasing, and the hormonal and health implications. Like, we know as females that dieting year on year on year, getting stage lean all the time is not good physiologically for ourselves. or mentally, but particularly physiologically in terms of sex hormones, thyroid hormones, everything like that. The more we diet, the more they are going to get affected in a negative way, and the harder it is going to be to recover and recover them and repair them and get them back into a normal physiological function. So there's that implication as well. So I have done a lot of thinking over the past year, and initially I was meant to start a prep in January. My last competing season ended in October 2022. I decided to take all of 2023 off to grow, and I was going to start prep again in January 2024. But I got into January and I just thought, no, I'm just not there yet. And I think this is something a lot of people need to realize. If you're not mentally in a place where you're like, I am buzzing, I cannot wait to start prep, like I'm sick of off season, I just want to get shredded, I've done everything I need to do and I'm so ready. If it's not a hell yes, it's a no, in my opinion. And this is something I was also speaking to Mel about yesterday, is if you're not feeling with every inch of your being and every cell of your body that you are like so excited and so motivated and so pumped and so ready to go into a prep, then you're not ready. Because if you have prep before, you will know how demanding it is. You will know how challenging it is on your life, on your energy levels, your hunger levels, your job, your career, your family, your friends, your relationships. Literally everything in life becomes 10 times harder when you're prepping because you do not have the available energy that you need to manage all these things. You are in a deficit, usually in a large deficit. You have suboptimal levels of body fat. You are not in a like healthy physiological function. So everything is going to be a struggle. So if you're not in a place where you're like, yeah, bring on the challenge, I cannot wait for this could be sick, then it's just not the time. And I just got to January and just felt it's not the time. And I think a lot of that was because last year, although I did everything I needed to do, like I still trained, I still got all my sessions in, I still trained progressively, I ate my food, I did everything I needed to do, I ticked my boxes, I didn't miss a single check-in every single week. I just felt mentally I'd probably taken a step back and I wasn't as engaged and, immersed in the bodybuilding world as I was for the past 6 years. I gave myself that little bit of a 6-month window to just be a bit YOLO. And I gave myself that permission because I wanted to figure out what I wanted to do. And this is actually something that the Amish community actually do. That when their children get to 18 years old, they are given a year, and it's called Rumspringa. They are given a year where they can go out into the world, be normal humans for a year, do normal things, use electricity, go to normal people events, like just have a normal life in the big bad world. And then at the end of the year, they can decide whether they want to return to the Amish community or whether they want to be set free and be a normal human. And this is kind of what it was like for me. It was like the Rumspringa of bodybuilding. I'd go off into the big bad world, be a normal human, and then see what I wanted to do after that. So I did that. It took 6 months. I really focused on my food blog, first of all. So that got really busy. And I was invited to like 2 to 3 food invites a week, which is great. So I was getting free food all the time at restaurants. I was meeting people. I was meeting loads of new people that were like nothing to do with bodybuilding, which was really cool. And building up my Instagram that way, getting content for them and like dressing up and having a good time going to events. I also met some new friends, which is amazing. So I have 3 new best girlfriends who are non-bodybuilding friends, who are normal girls who I love. And I went to just some meetups to meet new people outside of that. And I really gave myself the opportunity to be just a normal human. And I really enjoyed it. I had such a good 6 months. Like I have been the happiest I've ever been in so long. I genuinely cannot tell you the last time I was so happy. I just felt so fulfilled from having my 9 to 5 job that was going super well. I love my new job. Well, I'm in a year. Actually, it's my 1 year work anniversary, but it was relatively new at the time. I loved my new job. It was really fulfilling. I was doing lots of travel with that. I was meeting new people with that. I was making friends outside of bodybuilding. I was exploring my food blog thing, which was fun. I just had so much going on and it was great. But then I got to December and I turned 30. And to be honest, turning 30 was probably not as bad as the anticipation of turning 30 when I was 29. I think I did so much worry about it when I was 29 that when it happened, I was like, oh, nothing's changed. I haven't turned into a pumpkin. I am the exact same person. I still look young for my age. I still get ID'd for Monster and I still haven't had any Botox. So that is a plus. And I don't have a wrinkle. So I was like, there's so many positives to me turning 30 that I'm pretty okay with it. So turned 30 and then January came. And I think that onset of a new year, be like, shit, it's 2024, it's a new year. I need to set my goals and my ideas for the year ahead and what I want to achieve. And then it was like, okay, I've had my fun for the 6 months. Realistically, I'm the kind of person that needs some structure and routine in her life. And although I did have routine and structure, I just didn't have a goal. Like I do have some vague goals in terms of my career, in terms of my coaching, of course. Like I always want to build my business and I always want to look after my clients and get that to a really good place. But in terms of my own physique, I struggled because I was like, I don't really have a goal with this. Like, yes, I'm in my off season. Yes, I want to build muscle, but I don't have an end goal. And this is something that I kind of struggled with when I did my last off season because it was so long. I was meant to take a 1 year off season then, but it ended up being 3 years accidentally. And I got to a point where I just felt really lost because I didn't know when I was competing again. I didn't know like when I was going to start prep. I didn't really have like a set goal in mind. I was losing my motivation. I was losing my excitement. Also, the problem with off season is you do your check in every week and it's really hard to see changes. It's nearly impossible because obviously, as you're gaining muscle, you're obviously also gaining body fat. And it's going to be very difficult to see the changes in your physique in terms of muscle mass when you have a layer of body fat covering it. And this is where you need to, quote unquote, trust the process, which you absolutely do. But it can be hard when you're getting it into extended periods of off season, when you're doing it for years. Like 6 month off seasons are one thing, a year off season is another thing, but a 3 year off season, I got to the point being like, I am just sick of looking the same, feeling the same. My training motivation was dwindling. I wasn't excited. I was feeling so much FOMO. It got to the point where I had to take a break from going to shows because I just got so jealous of seeing people on stage and being like, why? It's not fair. Why are they up there and I'm not? So I think it gets to that point at the end of the off season where you're like, I'm just sick of just coasting and I want some excitement. So I have been toying in my head the idea of doing another prep, but obviously that's going to be having to thinking about timelines, having to think about dates, having to think about federations I want to do and shows. And is this the year that I might try a pro qualifier? I'm not saying that I'm pro worthy, but I just think having the experience of a pro qualifier is probably one of the one things I don't have. Like when I was saying earlier, I've done all the federations, I've done all the shows, I've done all the classes. I haven't done a pro qualifier, especially not abroad. So that would definitely be something that I'd like to tick off my list before I retire because I think it's a great opportunity. And when my friends do it, they seem to have a great time. And then after the show, you can explore for a couple of days and eat nice food and have a good time. And I think that would be something really nice. Um, so that is potentially something I would like to do. So it's just kind of thinking of the timelines for that. Um, so yeah, I'm still in my off season. I'm still building muscle, trying to build muscle as best I can. And just trying to be realistic, but also optimistic and not pessimistic. Because I did get to a point where I was like, God, I've been training for 7 years now. I feel like all of a sudden I blinked and I'm one of the oldest competitors or like the longest standing competitors. Like myself and Jazz have been in the industry. She's been in the industry for longer than me, maybe like 8, 9 years. I've been in it for 7. So I feel like all of a sudden I was the youngest and now I'm the oldest. And I've been here for so long that it's just like you do sometimes have to have a realignment of what the goal is and what the plan is. And obviously my goal is always to be a good educator, be a good coach, develop my business, really educate females, because I still think to this day, no matter if it's 2024 or not, there's a huge gap in the market and a huge mental barrier against female education and females being open and honest about their bodybuilding and about things they do and what they want to do and the questions they have and the things they don't understand. And I still see people and coaches who pull the wool over clients' eyes. And I still see girls coming to me on consult calls saying, my coach did X, Y, and Z, and they didn't tell me why they did it. And I just went along with it because I thought they had my best interest at heart. And now I have no sex hormones, and now my thyroid's in the gutter. And that makes me really sad. And I think I have the power to try and change that because I have the knowledge, I have the power, I have the platform with the Physique Collective. I need to utilize that and make sure that people feel there is a safe space for them to come and be open and honest about things. So that is definitely a goal of mine, aside from my own physique development, just in bodybuilding in general, is just to be that educator and be that open space for people to share and divulge and ask questions and feel that they won't be judged for it. Because I do think females are quite judgy. Like you're afraid to tell, maybe not your friends, maybe you're a bit more open with your friends, but like your extended acquaintances, you're afraid to share certain things with them because you don't know what they're going to say. Whereas in the male bodybuilding world, it's much more open. It's much more non-judgmental. Like people are more honest about what they do, and it's much more of like an open book, an open playing field. So I do think that's something I want to do. But I kind of did want to talk to you about how I do manage these feelings in off season, because as I said, I've been through a couple of off seasons before. I do get to the point where sometimes I feel like a bit lost, a bit lacking motivation, a bit, bored, as you would say. I think it's a bit taboo for people to say, I'm a bit bored of off season, but it's hard because when you're in a prep, you have an exact timeline. You know exactly when you're going to step on stage. You reverse engineer from that date. You know what you have to do every day. You tick all your boxes religiously. You pretty much see changes week on week on week. You get new low weigh-ins week on week on week. It's all very exciting, and there's always something to be looking forward to. You wake up the next morning and you're like, is there a new line of definition? Is there a new vein? Can I see my abs yet? Can I see quad striations yet? What's my weight? Has it gone down from yesterday? And it's all very exciting because it's all new. Whereas when you're in an off season, there's no set deadline, there's no date to work towards. You're not getting any leaner, so you're not seeing any new definition. You're probably seeing less definition. Your body weight's going up versus down. And I don't care what you say, us females have been conditioned for years and years and years to see scale weight gain as a negative. And it's very hard to untie and unlearn and unsolidify these behaviors and these thoughts, because they have been solidified for years and years and years from society, from magazines, from your friends, your family, your aunties, everyone telling you should be small and you should be skinny and you should be trying to lose weight, and your weight should always be going down. It shouldn't be going up. So if it's going up, it's a bad thing and you need to stop that. That's really hard to unlearn and to unravel. So you're dealing with that as well. You're dealing with obviously having lack of shows, lack of things to be excited about. Also, the FOMO is real. Like, going to the shows and seeing other people compete, or going on Instagram and seeing other people, their prep updates, their show day glam, their reels, their bikini reveals, their fittings, like all this stuff, like buying their jewelry, buying their heels, getting their tan done. All that stuff is so exciting. And you're like, I don't have any glitz and glamour in off season. I just find it can be a bit boring, it can be a bit monotonous. You can feel a bit lonely sometimes. Sometimes people say prep is lonely, but sometimes off season can be lonely as well. And whether we like it or not, there are certain people that only are interested in you and only care about you when you're on prep and when you're competing. And as soon as you get into off season, they drop off face the earth until the next prep. So make sure to keep your friends close, the ones that stay with you throughout your off seasons, because they are your true friends. But what I like to do in off season to, I would say, stay relevant, because sometimes it's easy to feel irrelevant in an off season because you're not competing, is first of all, remind yourself of the nature of the phase. The nature of the phase. So they say it's an off season. Obviously, we know it's not really an off season. It's not like you're not doing anything and you're just kind of fecking around. You are in this phase for the primary goal of building muscle, developing your physique, and improving it from the last time you stepped on stage. So you should have stepped off stage. You should have received your feedback. You know exactly what you need to work on, whether it's bigger glutes, bigger delts, smaller waist, leaner, better tie-in, all that kind of stuff. You use that data to glean exactly what you need to do in the off season, and you design your program as effectively and as precisely as possible, or a coach does, and you work with a coach to optimize your physique development in the off season. And that is where you grow. You don't grow in a prep, you grow in an off season with enough food. You give yourself surplus amounts of food that you need, making sure, sorry, why am I stuttering? You give yourself more food than you need to maintain, so you eat in a surplus. You are eating whole nutritious foods. You're not just throwing it on junk, because I know by the end of some off seasons people just eat shit because they're not motivated, but you do still need to eat whole nutritious foods, plenty of fruit and veg, all that kind of stuff. And you need to train hard, train effectively. And it isn't just an off season, it is structured, it is progressive. Like, you need to be on top of things. So that's important to remember, that the phase is probably more important than prep. If you want your prep to be successful, you have to have a good off season. And that's the important thing you need to remind yourself of. It's not like you're just taking your foot off the gas and doing nothing. Like, you are working hard. So that's the first thing. So when you feel like you're out of the loop, just remember that you're doing what you need to do so you can be in the running the next time to achieve the goal that you want to achieve. The next thing I'd recommend is going to events, seminars, posing classes, shows, things like that. Like the shows, I think, be mindful of them, because I think it gets to a certain point after a few shows that you're like, it can be a bit difficult to be around a lot of lean people all the time when you're not lean and they're already tanned and shredded and you're not, and you're getting photos with them and you don't feel good and you're covering yourself up and stuff. So be mindful of that. If you have no issue with that, then off you go. Just go to as many shows as you want and have fun, but just be mindful that I think it came to a point where it did start to affect me mentally after a while. So go to your best friend shows and support them, be their show day girl, be as involved as possible. Get involved in the tanning people if you want to do that. Get involved in the makeup or the hair if you're good at anything. Like, think outside the box. Like, if there's anything, a skill that you have that you think would be useful on show day, like offer your services to people, whether you're good at photography or videography or tanning or hair or makeup or nails or skin or anything like that. Like, offer your service. That's something I really want to do this year, is get into more like offering makeup, because I really, really enjoy makeup and it brings me a lot of joy to do people's makeup. So maybe. So getting involved in any way you can be really good. Going to posing seminars. I know it's hard when there's other people on prep and they're like stage lead and posing bikinis, but you could just wear shorts and a sports bra and just don't get rusty. Like when I went to the Rocket one the other week when I was helping out with Compact, she let us attempt to join in at the back, and I really enjoyed that. And I was like, God, I need to get into more going to posing events when I'm in off season, because it's important to practice. A lot of people neglect practice in off season because we're like, oh, you won't see anything, I'm too fat, I'm not going to see any shape. But you need to solidify like the neurological wiring of those movement patterns in your head, so that when you do come down to prep, you're not learning them from afresh, because the last thing you want to do is learn everything from afresh when you're on prep and you don't have a brain to use. So it is important to make sure that you're on top of it with that. So going to events, there's always events going on. Like Compact has had events in the past, Physique Collective have had events in the past. There's always various things going on. So check out what's going on around you, whether there's going to be, coach seminars, where there's going to be training days, or even like coaches have some meetups. And this is something I really want to do. I really want to have a coach client meetup this year, or even a coach client photo shoot this year. I think that'll be really, really fun to get everyone together, because I think it's amazing for bonding of people. So yeah, I do think that's important. And just creating a group of friends that understand and that will be with you, whether it's off season or prep, is so important. Like, I have my core group of girls. They don't give a shit whether I'm in off season, whether I'm on prep. If I turned around to them tomorrow and said, I am never training again, I am never going to the gym again, they'll be like, cool. What do you want to do instead? Do you want to go for coffee? Do you want to go swimming? Do you want to do something else? Like, they are not friends with me because we compete. We became friends because we were both in the industry and we got to know each other, but we are not friends because we compete. We are friends because we love each other, we care for each other, we have lots in common, we have similar morals, similar values, all that kind of thing. So I think that is something that you need to consider in that respect. Final thing I will say on this topic is make sure you are working with a coach throughout your off season. I know it's so tempting to leave your coach post show and say, you know what, I'm just going to do it on my own. I want to save some money. I think I can just do this myself. But you have no idea. It's just so impossible. Like, no matter what, I don't care what people say, it is impossible for humans to see themselves in an objective light. You cannot see yourself objectively. You're always going to have a bias. You're always going to be subjective. You're always going to see things with a clouded view, because by definition, we all think we're special snowflakes. We all think we're the anomalies. We all think we're the ones where science doesn't apply to us. And obviously that is not the case. And you just need a coach to screw your head on, to be honest, because even in off season, you need your head screwed on, potentially more than prep, because if you're gaining weight and you're not used to gaining weight and you see yourself getting softer and you feel like you're going backwards, you need someone to check in with to say, you're doing the right thing. You're doing exactly what you need to do. Keep going. And they will be the voice of reason and the objective perspective that you need. I think that is so important. And also, what a good coach will do is not only will they screw your head on for you each week, is that they will periodize your phases for you. So when you come out of off season, or when you come out of prep and you're like, okay, I'm going into off season now, but I really need to know when I'm prepping again. Ideally, they should create you a timeline, set the date of the next prep and the next show that you're aiming for, even if it's 2 years away. They should still have a rough idea of when that is, and then reverse engineer back to where you are now and have every single phase in place that's periodized, that's organized, that's structured, and that will give you the motivation you need, because you can see it in the horizon, even if it's years away. It doesn't matter. It's there. It's not like you're just bulking into the ether and you'll never be shredded again and you'll just be like perma bulking and it'll just be boring and you'll just be fat. Like that's just not how it works. So it is important to have that phase periodization there. And that is something that I set for all of my clients when they come to me first. I ask them what their date of their goal is, like whether it's a prep, whether it's a photo shoot prep, whether it's a wedding, anything like that. We set that date in and then we reverse engineer from that. And then we plan the phases all the way back to where we are now. So we know exactly where we are now, exactly where we're going, and everything in between. I also ask them for any events or any things that are coming up in the middle, so we can plan for them and organize them and see, okay, you have an event on this day, how are you going to navigate that? You have a dinner on this day, how do we want to manage that? I think that's really important as well, because life does not exist in a vacuum, and life does not care that you are prepping, because it will throw curveballs at your way, and life is a bitch, and that just happens. So I think that's really important to remember as well. So I just wanted to run through all the things I find have helped me to get through long off seasons, because I'm finding that at the moment it's been like over a year now, nearly a year and a half, and I'm getting kind of itchy feet thinking, do I want to prep again or do I not? How am I going to get through this? And it's just a reminder that we all have our doubts, we all have our uncertainties, and things like that just happen. Um, so yeah, I just wanted to share that with you to break the seal on the next season, I suppose, of the Elevate HD podcast in 2024. But guys, I've had a couple of people reach out to me recently. I've really appreciated it, saying, oh, I've been listening to your podcast for a while and I really relate to you and I really resonate with you. And that means so much to me. But please feel free to suggest things, because I'm always all ears when it comes to guests, when it comes to topics. All I want to do is help you. So it doesn't matter to me. There's no point in me just talking about what I want to talk about, because I need you guys to find it valuable and useful, and tune in and listen to it. It's really, really important to me. So feel free to slide into the DMs. I'm at Holly_Physique Collective on Instagram. So please drop me a message and let me know what you want to see. I would also love, at the moment, I think I have like one Apple review and it says 5 stars and it just says, I love your accent, which, by the way, thank you for whoever said that, because I appreciate that. But if you could please leave a rating and review, ideally a 5-star rating and review on your podcast platform, I'd really appreciate that, because it really helps boost the podcast and helps get it to more people's ears, because I really want to make sure more people are helped, more people are informed. I want it to be a safe space for them to know to come to if they have any questions or concerns about bodybuilding, physique development, life in general, anything like that. And yeah, that is enough from me. If you listen to this episode, please take a screenshot, share it to your story, tag myself. I'm at Holly_Physique Collective on Instagram. Please check the links in the description for you to sign up to my newsletter, for you to apply for coaching, for you to do all that good stuff. I would very much appreciate it. And that is pretty much it. So until next time, I will see you all very soon.